Okay, so we're going to pick up where we left off. We're going to start adding in some of the behavior for when you click the right color and when you click the wrong color. So let's start with when you pick the wrong color. What we want to do is fade this out so that it matches the background color here. So that's actually pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of writing this dot style dot background equals, and then we just need to match the color that we set in our CSS. Looks like that. So we'll paste that in and save. Let's test it out. Let's click one of the wrong ones. You can see it fades out. And if I click the right one, we still get our alert. Okay, so I'll refresh. So that's what we're going to start with. And the other thing that we want to happen though is we want a display. As you can see here, right here, there will be a display. So if I click on one of the colors and it says try again. And if I get it right, like here, it displays correct. And then we'll focus on the other things like changing the color once we get that first part. So let's add in this paragraph, or this span actually is what it is, and have it display the correct message. So we go back to our HTML and we're going to add another div in, and we actually have 3 or 4 different pieces that will go here eventually. For now, it's just going to be a little span that goes inside that div. So as I mentioned, it will be more. For now, it's just a span. It's going to be empty to start. As I refresh the page, you can see there's no message here. So we're going to go here, have an empty span, and let's give it an ID, and we'll just call it message. And that way we can select it from inside of our JavaScript. So let's go to our JavaScript now and select that. So up here, we'll call it var message display equals document. And we'll do query selector, and that we called it message. We need the ID, so we need the octothorpe. And then if the user guesses wrong, all we need to do is write message display dot text content equals try again. And if we refresh and we click the wrong one, it's really hard to see, so we should change the background color, or the text color. We can just do that over here. We'll just say all spans should have color white. And if we refresh now, I click the wrong one, it tells me try again. Okay, and we keep getting that until I get the right one, and we still get this alert. So if we guess the correct one, what we will want to do is change what we display in that message display. We'll want to change it to be correct. So message display dot text content equals correct. Just like that. And now if we try this, we get it wrong, it says try again. We get it right, and it tells us correct. Okay, so we have that basic logic in there now, where we're checking if we're right or we're wrong, and we're displaying something. The next thing we could do is add the feature where when you get the right answer, all the squares change color to match that answer. So here, click the right answer, they all change to green. And then we can also do the background of this H1 as well. So the first thing we need to do, so to make this work, I'm actually going to write a separate function to do it for me, just to keep my code a little bit more organized. Change colors, and it will take a single argument, a color string, and then inside of here, we need to loop through all squares, change each color to match given color. So to loop through all the squares, we've already done that. It's just a matter of for var I equals 0. I is less than color.length, or colors.length, I++. And then inside is where we'll need to change each color. And we've done that before already. It's just a colors I dot style dot background equals color, which is what we provided. Technically, our code will change every single square to match the color. So including this one, which is the correct color, it will just overwrite it and change it to the same color that it already is. We can add some code to fix that, but let's just start with this. And then we need to call this function, change colors, and we need to pass in the clicked color, which is the variable we created up here, which is the style.background of the color that was clicked. And we're doing this if they guessed it correctly. So if we save and refresh, see if we have any errors. Nope. And now let's click wrong, wrong, correct. And we have a problem. When we click on correct, it tells us cannot set property background of undefined. If we look at what it's talking about, colors i.style.background, of course we have a problem here because I'm doing this to our colors array. And this should not be our colors array. This is our colors array. It should be on the squares array, which is the squares that we're trying to change. What I was doing was the colors array, just the strings. So squares.length, and now we should be good to go. And they all changed to the color that was picked, just like that. All right, so next up, let's focus on getting the random colors in the array and then picking a random color from that array. So I'm gonna start with the second thing, which is picking a random color instead of just automatically making it colors 3. To help us pick a random element from this array, I'm actually gonna make a function. And the reason I'm doing that is 1, to clean up our code, but 2, we're actually gonna use that function later because every time that we start a new game, we have to pick a new color. So it's something we're gonna have to call a few times. To make that work, I'm gonna start by calling the function that doesn't exist just yet. So I'm gonna say pick color equals, and let's name it pick color. And then we need to define pick color. So I'll come down here, just do it at the bottom for now. Function pick color. In this function, we need to do 2 things. One is pick a random number. So something like 0 or 1 or 2, all the way to the last index of this array. And then we need to use that number to access the color out of this array and return that color. So we'll start by picking a random number. And the way that we pick a random number in JavaScript is using math.random. And math.random will pick a number between 0 and 1, and it doesn't include 1. So let me show you that. Math.random, and it's a long, long decimal. So if we wanted to generate a number between 0 and 6, for instance, to mimic a die roll, we would do math.random and then multiply it. In our case, if we did just times 6, we actually would never get a number above 5.99999. So if we want that number to go from 1 up until 6, we could multiply it by 6 and then add 1 at the end. And now we can get as high as 6.999, and to get a whole number, we then need to chop off that decimal. So we can use math.floor, which is another method. And that will just take whatever is returned from math.random, multiplying it by 6, adding 1, and then remove everything after the decimal point. And that gives us random numbers between 1 and 6, as you can see. But we don't necessarily want just between 1 and 6. This array eventually might only have 3 items. As you can see, when I go to easy mode, there's only 3 colors. So it might have 3, it might have 6. So we're going to just use the length of the array to generate our color. So it will look like this. Math.random, we're going to generate a number between 0 and 1, and then multiply it by the length of the array. And that's okay because remember that it's not inclusive. So even though the length of the array is 1 more than the highest index, so the length is 6, but the highest number we want is 5, because random number only goes between 0 and 1, but it doesn't include 1, we're in good shape. So we're going to generate that, and then we're going to do math.floor of that whole thing, which will chop off the remaining decimal point. And then once we have that done, that gives us a random number. The next thing we need to do is save this to a variable and then use that variable to access an element from the array at that index. So then we're going to say return colors random. So this picks a random number like 3, and then it returns colors of 3. All right, so let's test this out. We have pick color. We're calling pick color up at the top here. So if I refresh, we should expect this to change. And it does change. As I refresh, you can see sometimes you get the same one because there's only 6 and they never change, but it changes almost every time. Now let's check if our click logic works the same way. So if I click This one is 0 red, 0 green, and all blue. So let's try clicking on red, cyan, good. If I click on blue, it's correct.